For years, German leaders convinced themselves that Western Europe was protected by something unstoppable. An enormous wall of concrete and steel, presented as flawless, modern, and deadly, was supposed to end any invasion before it truly began. But in the early hours of June 6, 1944, that confidence started to unravel. What happened in Normandy was the moment when belief collided with reality. Reports arrived fragmented and confusing. Alarms sounded everywhere, yet nowhere seemed decisive. What was expected to be controlled and predictable became chaotic, slow, and uncertain. While commanders hesitated, the situation on the ground evolved faster than anyone in German headquarters anticipated. How did an army that trusted so completely in its defenses lose control in a matter of hours? And why were crucial decisions delayed at the exact moment they mattered most? To understand how this collapse began, we need to go back to the months before D. In the months before June 1944, German leaders convinced themselves that Western Europe was protected by an impenetrable barrier. The Atlantic Wall was portrayed as a technological marvel, a continuous system of bunkers, guns, mines, and obstacles stretching across thousands of miles of coastline. German propaganda emphasized millions of tons of concrete and steel, projecting confidence to soldiers and civilians alike. This narrative shaped internal thinking as much as public opinion, fostering a belief that any Allied landing could be shattered on the beaches. The image of Fortress Europe created dangerous complacency within the Wehrmacht command structure before D-Day arrived. Behind this confident facade, inspections revealed serious weaknesses that senior officers quietly acknowledged. Defensive works were uneven, many sectors unfinished, and large stretches of coastline guarded by static divisions lacking transport or mobility. Manpower shortages forced reliance on poorly trained units, including formations composed of former prisoners of war. Even Rommel, tasked with strengthening coastal defenses, understood that time and resources were insufficient. The Atlantic Wall existed more convincingly in newsreels than in reality. This gap between perception and capability meant that when the invasion came, German forces would face overwhelming pressure with limited means to respond effectively during combat. German command organization further magnified these vulnerabilities. Authority in the West was divided between Field Marshal von Rundstedt and Field Marshal Rommel, while ultimate control rested far away in Hitler's headquarters. Army groups, corps, and divisions operated within a rigid hierarchy that discouraged initiative. Crucially, the most powerful armored reserves could not be committed without approval from the highest political level. This structure delayed decisions at moments when speed was essential. Experienced commanders understood the danger, but the system ensured hesitation, confusion, and lost hours once the Allies began landing in Normandy during the critical early morning hours of June. The debate over panzer deployment became the clearest example of German indecision. Rommel argued that Allied air superiority made inland movements suicidal after dawn, demanding armored units near the beaches. Rundstedt preferred a centralized reserve capable of counterattacking once the main invasion site was identified. The compromise split forces between both concepts and satisfied neither commander. Some divisions were too far to intervene quickly, others too weak to strike decisively. Worse, final authority to release the strongest formations remained with Hitler, ensuring fatal delays during the invasion's opening hours on June 6, 1944. Itself exactly as planned originally. German expectations on the eve of D-Day were shaped by deception and assumption. Intelligence assessments emphasized Pas-de-Calais as the likely invasion point, reinforcing beliefs that Normandy was secondary. Many officers expected any landing there to be a diversion, designed to draw forces away from the true objective. This conviction encouraged caution rather than immediate commitment. Even as warnings accumulated, doubt persisted within headquarters. By the time certainty replaced suspicion, precious hours had passed. The stage was set for shock, disbelief, and delayed reactions when the scale of the Allied assault became undeniable to German planners that morning in Normandy alone. In the early hours of June 6, 1944, German headquarters faced reports that defied logic and expectation. Airborne troops were said to be everywhere, yet nowhere specific. Naval gunfire thundered far inland, while coastal units described limited probes. Telephone lines failed, radios contradicted each other, and no reconnaissance aircraft confirmed reality. Commanders relied on assumptions instead of evidence. What should have been recognized as a massive invasion appeared as scattered alarms. This uncertainty allowed Allied forces to expand freely during the most decisive hours of the operation before German command understood the scale of what was unfolding thereafter. Leadership absence compounded the chaos across Normandy that morning. Field Marshal Rommel was away in Germany, convinced weather ruled out invasion. Adolf Hitler slept at his residence, while aides hesitated to wake him prematurely. Seventh Army officers traveled to a scheduled exercise and scrambled back once alarms sounded. General Wilhelm Falle raced toward headquarters and was killed by American paratroopers, with commanders missing or moving the chain of command fractured instantly. Decisions stalled as officers waited for authority while the invasion advanced faster than German leadership could physically assemble, leaving confusion dominant everywhere during critical early hours of battle operations. Hitler's reaction when finally informed shaped German behavior decisively. Awakened near midday, he did not rage or panic. Instead, he expressed relief, believing conditions favored defense. He assumed Allied soldiers would be trapped inland and destroyed by counterattack. Normandy remained, possibly a diversion from the expected strike at Calais. This belief reinforced delay, caution, and restraint at the highest level. Strategic misjudgment therefore flowed downward, influencing every order, hesitation, and missed opportunity during the invasion. Opening phase across the entire German command system that morning with long-lasting consequences for the campaign in France and Western Europe as events unfolded. Field Marshal Rundstedt perceived danger earlier than Berlin authorities. He requested immediate release of armored reserves near Paris. These panzer divisions represented the only force capable of crushing the beachhead quickly. Authority, however, rested with the High Command and Hitler himself. Fear that Normandy was a faint delayed approval for crucial hours. When consent arrived, daylight exposed movement to Allied aircraft. Potential counterattack transformed into vulnerability, leaving German armor powerful in theory, yet largely irrelevant on the decisive first day of the invasion, despite its training, reputation, and past battlefield. Successes earned earlier during the war years before in Europe. On the beaches, German soldiers fought with discipline and courage, but without coordination. Allied landings succeeded everywhere, despite different levels of resistance. Utah Golden Sword fell relatively quickly. Juno proved costly for Canadian troops, yet held. Omaha nearly collapsed under fire and inflicted shocking casualties. Even there, defenders lacked tanks, aircraft, and mobile infantry. Static divisions could kill, but not maneuver. Tactical bravery could not compensate for operational weakness or the absence of reserves needed to exploit early success during the chaotic first. Hours of combat against a determined invading force, supported by overwhelming firepower from sea, air, land. German counterattack attempts exposed systemic failure rather than cowardice. Kampfgruppe received orders to respond to airborne landings inland. Units marched narrow roads, then reversed direction repeatedly. Naval gunfire forced detours, while fighter bombers pinned columns. Orders were postponed as reports changed. By the time decisions emerged, British forces attacked first. Assembly areas were overrun before movement began. The counterattack existed only in planning documents, not in reality, demonstrating how time and air power defeated German intentions during the invasion opening phase across central Normandy on June 6 under constant Allied pressure from air-sea artillery and advancing infantry formations. The 21st Panzer Division launched the only serious armored thrust. Advancing toward the coast, it reached the sea between British and Canadian sectors. For a moment, the beachhead appeared split. German troops believed reversal was possible. Yet the success was isolated and fragile. Allied tanks, naval guns, and aircraft threatened, and fearing airborne landings behind him, the commander ordered withdrawal. The gap closed quickly, and the opportunity vanished forever under overwhelming Allied firepower superiority during the afternoon hours of June 6th. Despite earlier hopes among German ranks for a decisive battlefield intervention that never truly materialized in Normandy properly, as daylight faded, German headquarters abandoned denial. Reports confirmed Allied troops were not withdrawing. Supplies, vehicles, artillery, and men landed continuously. Paratroopers linked with beach forces inland. No landing sector had been cleared. Expectations of collapse evaporated. Instead, the Allied perimeter expanded steadily. German commanders recognized containment at the shoreline had failed completely. The defensive doctrine of stopping invaders at the water edge collapsed with it, marking a decisive turning point in the battle for Western Europe. During the first day of overlord, with consequences extending far beyond Normandy and shaping the remainder of the war in the West thereafter. By nightfall, professional officers accepted the scale of failure. More than 150,000 Allied soldiers stood on French soil. The Atlantic Wall had been breached in multiple places within hours. German forces lacked means to eject the invaders. Without air superiority, naval power, or reserves, success was impossible. Tactical excellence could not overcome material imbalance. Even perfect decisions tomorrow would not reverse today. Normandy represented a strategic rupture after which Germany fought defensively everywhere across occupied Europe and beyond as Allied momentum accelerated relentlessly following the successful landings on June 6, 1944, without realistic recovery options. The realization carried psychological weight. Normandy was not a raid or diversion. It was the opening of a permanent front. The unwanted guests had arrived in overwhelming strength. Industrial, naval, and air power guaranteed constant reinforcement. German soldiers would continue fighting bravely, yet strategically doomed. From this moment, Germany reacted rather than initiated. June 6th marked the beginning of the end in the West. The invasion's success confirmed irreversible decline and the approaching collapse of the Third Reich across Europe under Allied pressure that would intensify relentlessly afterward until final defeat became unavoidable for Nazi Germany. In 1945, June 6, 1944, became psychologically devastating for Germany, not merely militarily significant. It exposed the gap between confidence and reality within the Wehrmacht. The Atlantic Wall myth collapsed in hours. What followed was not shock alone, but recognition that long-prepared defenses had failed fundamentally against Allied coordination. German commanders understood that tactical courage could not reverse strategic collapse. Individual units fought effectively, yet without hope of decisive success. The failure was systemic, not personal. Centralized authority delayed action. Fragmented reserves ensured paralysis. By nightfall, experienced officers accepted that no counterstroke remained capable of restoring the situation anywhere. The often cited explanations for defeat obscured deeper causes. Hitler's sleeping, Rommel absence, and deception mattered, but were not decisive alone. Even perfect timing could not offset Allied dominance. Germany faced enemies whose naval, air, and industrial output overwhelmed any conceivable response once the invasion achieved a foothold in France. For German soldiers, the realization was sobering. They would continue to fight skillfully, yet increasingly defensively. Normandy removed initiative forever. From June 6th onward, Germany reacted to Allied moves rather than shaping events. The Western Front became a battle of delay, not victory, as resources dwindled and pressure mounted everywhere. Strategically, the success of D-Day transformed the war. It ensured continuous reinforcement and eventual breakout. German planners recognized the front could never be sealed again. The guests would not leave. The invasion marked the beginning of a sustained Allied advance toward Germany itself, supported by overwhelming material superiority, thereafter permanently. Psychologically, June 6th destroyed confidence inside German command circles. The belief in Fortress Europe vanished. Officers grasped that sacrifice alone could not change outcomes. The war had entered a final phase. Normandy symbolized the moment Germany lost control of its destiny in the West as Allied strength dictated future operations. In retrospect, German reactions on D-Day reveal not incompetence, but inevitability. Decisions mattered, yet imbalance mattered more. Once Allied forces stood ashore, the outcome was sealed. Normandy initiated the chain leading to liberation of Western Europe and the collapse of the Third Reich less than 1 year later afterward.